This episode of the Bottle Rocket podcast is brought to you by Game Eclipse TV. You ready?
Yeah!
Hi guys, welcome to episode 9 of the Bottle Rocket podcast with me, Chris.
And me, Jake.
Me, Ben.
Me, the month.
So the trailer for Tekken 7 came out this week. You guys all see it?
Hell yeah.
Yes.
No.
Well, whatever
Well,
there was
good.
to see.
You didn't, Jake?
As far,
You didn't?
I didn't.
You need to check it out.
I need to check that out.
there wasn't
Yeah.
much in the way of gameplay. In fact, there was a sum total
there
of
never
0.
is.
But the intention is there. Tekken 7 is coming, boys.
I'm willing to guess it'll be about two guys opposite each other punching each other and
Ooh.
kicking each other until
You
a
don't
bar
say.
empties and one of them falls over.
My God, he's got it, boys.
Captain Obvious is here.
I think you're onto the plot there.
Really? But to be fair, Tekken, I do just play it for the plots because they're bonkers.
Yeah.
The most amazing things.
Yeah, if you can extrapolate them from it, then they
Yeah.
are crazy.
Absolutely.
Well, judging by the trailer, the premise for this storyline is Heihachi Mishima is the villain again.
Is he? Because he was the good guy, then he was the villain, then he was a good guy, then he was the villain.
I think Heihachi's he's never really been the big bad, but in this one he's supposed to be the big bad.
He was the big bad in Tekken 1.
Yeah, I suppose he did throw Kazuya into a mountain, didn't he?
He did. Yeah,
He was
then Kazuya threw him into a volcano.
Yeah, but he was a douchebag, so he deserved it, kind of. Well, yeah. It's
So-
looking...
Yeah,
Awesome.
so Tekken 7, that's a long line of video games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just seem to be getting sequel after sequel, rehash after rehash,
Yeah. Seems to be the favourite.
and remakes
Mm.
left, right, and centre.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you say?
That's I don't think it's necessarily a new thing in gaming, but it's definitely the new fad.
The fashion of the moment, remake the
yeah.
old stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we kind of talked about this on an earlier cast about like the Halo bundle and how
Yeah,
it was necessary because they didn't make the new Xbox backwards compatible or any of the new consoles backwards compatible. So the only way that you can play your older games on your new hardware is for them to remake it in HD.
yeah.
Yes.
I mean, is it not possible to make the new consoles backwards compatible? Is that an impossibility, or is it just a market?
They did it with the very first edition of the PlayStation 3. So
They
what,
did, yes, because I've got one of those PlayStation
What
3s.
different? How different would it be to do it with the PlayStation 4?
Well, the difference is when they first released the PlayStation 3, the fat 60 gig PS3 had the technology that the PlayStation 2 had. The Emotion Engine chip was actually in the machine.
Yeah.
That's the one I had.
They removed it after, well, the first sort of run, and then towards the end of the life cycle, they put in emulation software for PS2 titles, but they didn't even manage to do that for all of them. So I don't know if it's as straight cut and simple as let's just put in backwards compatibility because it's more powerful hardware.
Because on the surface, to somebody who doesn't really know much about building a console, it seems like surely if it's not as complex, it should be able to handle it. And it seems like it's taken out so that they can make money from it. But like I say, I'm completely uneducated in building consoles and the technology that goes into it. So who am I to comment?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think from the technological side of it, if you look at the PlayStation 3, I say everybody, a lot of the sort of development side of the games industry criticised it for its horribly complex architecture, which is nothing like the PlayStation 4, which is more like a standard PC architecture. But then on Microsoft's side of things, the Xbox 360 was touted for being decent to develop on because it was so much like a PC. And again, I think the Xbox One is like an extension of that. So, maybe the question does stand to Microsoft, why haven't you
Exactly.
just changed it around a bit?
Or
made it
just
so that we
put
can?
emulator in it or something like that.
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
the emulator solution is so much cheaper to build. And all right, maybe it doesn't work 100% of the time, and I agree with you, Chris. I know nothing about building one of these damn things, but I guess the financial equation doesn't really add up for these big companies. It's like, why spend extra time, resources, and money developing something that will actually just lose us money because we can't sell games that you've already bought back to you, which is, I think, a sad thing about the world in which we live. Like the PS2 played PS1 games like straight out of the box. And that was kind of one of the things that they sort of touted as one of its big features in the launch when it was launched, and so they should, because the PlayStation 1 was amazing and smashed everything around it.
It was a game changer.
Yeah, so they said when they released PS2, it's like, don't worry, you can play all your old PS1 games, but you soon won't want to.
Yeah.
And it was important, I think, and the PS3 did the same for a bit.
Well, not only not only is it important that way, but it also gives you a bigger launch catalogue.
Oh, totally, yeah.
Because you've got everything from the last gen.
Yeah.
So people aren't going to get bored with your console because you've still got stuff to play from them.
Yeah.
I remember the PS2 had settings to try and make your PS1 games look a bit better. Yeah. To like slightly smooth out textures.
Yeah,
they smooth out that square head.
I don't think that even works. I really don't think that worked.
Yeah, you couldn't round Lara Croft's square head, could you?
No, you couldn't. But it's okay. Everything.
You look more like Steve from Minecraft.
It was either smooth or compatible, I think.
So, talking about remakes and stuff like that. What have been the sort of best remakes that we've seen recently?
The new Duke Nukem.
The new Duke Nukem.
Really?
What, you're putting that in the best one?
No.
Damn,
I think you misheard. I said best, not worst.
It's pretty awful.
Serious answers to the front.
All right, one word and one letter. XCOM.
Enemy unknown.
Yeah, and those two words as well. It's absolutely, it's absolutely wonderful. And it's kind of everything that a remake should be, because they took the spirit of the original, like this kind of tactical third-person shooter, and they updated it and made it accessible and interesting again, and threw in loads of new ideas. And because they were originally going to make a bland third/first-person shooter, and I think they did. I can't remember what it's called, but it's called XCOM something else. Like, that actually got released, and then that got such bad press in previews. They went, actually, oh wait, no, people want a remake of the original XCOM, and they released that, and that's done amazingly well. It's just great. Have any of you guys actually played it? Or did it kind of?
I haven't played it myself.
I assuredly have not played it.
Which I don't know which one I've played.
Yeah,
probably disappointed.
Yeah. Pick it up in the Humble Bundle that we advertised last week.
Yes, it's in that, isn't it? That mighty Humble Bundle. Humble Bundle. I struggle to say it every time.
Yeah, and you can play all the other old XCOM games in it, but it's great. It's I just can't use words for it. It's got it's got that kind of old school gaming thing where it doesn't take you by the hand, really.
So no breadcrumbs.
No, your guys in it will die, and they will die after you've got really attached to them. Yeah. So after you've given them names, after you've kind of chosen their color schemes or whatever, after you've outfitted them with weapons, they will get killed by a lucky alien.
That's a sort of, a gaming rule, isn't it? If you set a name for a character, normally he's going to live till the end.
Yeah.
That's how it normally goes down. You know that character's safe when you've had the ability to name him.
When you call him Yellow Swag XX1234, then yeah.
Then you just want him to die.
But you name your entire squad. I tried to find the most kind of dynamic action hero names ever. So my squad was led by a guy called Rick Dangerforce.
Was his second in command called Dutch?
Yeah, something like that.
Dutch.
And there was I like one of my best moments playing video games in the last kind of year or so was when Rick Dangerforce was on the ropes and, on the verge of death, was going to bleed out in a couple of turns, and his entire squad had to push forward to save their commander from death.
I think
that's the second best name I've ever heard.
Brilliant.
I'm pretty sure it's the second best name I've ever heard. The first will always go to, I think, is it Sylvester Stallone's kid that's called Sage Moonblood?
Sage Moonblood. That's wonderful.
What a name.
By my next run, there's going to be a Sage Moonblood.
It might as well have just been called LSD Trip.
Sage Moonblood.
Yeah, we just woke up and we found out that our son was called Sage Moonblood, and there was nothing we could do about it. We're really sorry. No, it's brilliant, and it creates these kind of lovely organic moments that you care about, and it does so by creating sort of an element of risk. It also was the first game to kind of convince me that sort of save scumming was a bad thing. You know how you kind of in a challenging game you'll save and then try
save,
to
then make the decision.
Yeah.
In XCOM, you can turn on a setting at the beginning, which I highly recommend, because it sort of offers it you right at the beginning, where it auto saves every time something happens, after every turn, and you don't go back to your auto save. So whatever happens, and stays happened.
That's better because it makes your choices mean more.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You've got to play the rest of the game. If you've clocked up 20, 30 hours of gameplay, and you make a decision, you've got to live with that then.
Absolutely. It does create a slightly annoying situation that you can get like 10 hours into the game and have your entire squad wiped out and have to start again with a whole load of newbies and fail to complete the game.
Yeah, well, that's your punishment for not being good enough.
Yes, for not responding well to a scaling challenge, and not adequately training your raw recruits. But that's okay. Again, choices you made, and there's an expansion out for it as well called Enemy Within, which I haven't played, but I hear is also great and brings in more things for the originals that people liked and more additional stuff like mechs.
Mechs.
So yeah, XCOM is the way to do it right.
Right, that's pretty conclusive.
that was a comprehensive view of XCOM there as well.
You sold it to me, right? It's just
I was
pondering whether to click it and get it right now.
Good.
Yeah, so if we're looking for a sponsor from XCOM, then
sorry. In the wake of all these YouTube stars being given sponsorship deals,
the question of ethics.
Yeah, to be honest, with our hundreds of views, I get like a couple of donuts a week from 2K, I think. So just a full disclosure,
Yeah. So any other remakes that have caught anybody's attention recently, or ones that are coming? I bet I know you're interested in The Last of Us, aren't you, Ben?
Yeah, man. Well, this is for me where I think that like remakes, remasters, rehashes, whatever you want to call them, are a good thing. So far in this generation of consoles, it's been pretty light on the ground as far as games go. And I didn't get the chance to play The Last of Us on the PS3 because I was actually saving every penny to actually be able to afford a PlayStation 4. And so now I've got one, I'm not going to miss the opportunity to sort of play the definitive version of the game, if you will. Where you've got the full 1080p 60 frames experience and ultra crisp graphics and whatever other bells and whistles.
It just seems really quick. It's like,
does it seem as though they were making it along the same time they were making the PS3 version?
It seems like that. You're probably still selling hard copies of the PS3 version now, and
guarantee there will be
the rebooted version.
I'm pretty sure that the PS3 version still retails at like full RRP or $39.99 in most places, and the the PS4 version is literally out in 2 weeks' time, I think.
It just seems really quick.
I do think that this was a preemptive strike, though. There was a lot of talk about a PS4 version before the PS4 actually even came out. as soon as it did come out, there was a lot of people sort of whopping in and hollering to Sony saying, you need to get this game on PS4 right away. And they were like, no, honestly, it's never going to come out, man. Come on, please. And then what do you know? Like 2 months down the road, it's announced. So, yeah, but I'm happy about that one. Because it was like critically acclaimed, and it's by Naughty Dog, who are probably, in my opinion, the highest achieving developers of the previous console generation.
Did you find the Easter egg in Uncharted 3 that linked it to The Last of Us?
I only played Uncharted 3 through once so far.
If I remember rightly, it was in the bar scene in the beginning. There was a newspaper that the headline was something about an outbreak of a plague. So I think Uncharted 3 is supposedly set about 2 years before the first bit of Last of Us, where Joel's daughter dies.
That's wonderful.
So
I think I could have that wrong.
So you are insinuating then, and by deduction, that Easter egg is insinuating that The Last of Us and Uncharted are in fact one and the same universe.
Yes, which
would make sense. And it'll make Uncharted 4 quite interesting.
It would, yeah.
If
that's the truth.
If they could link them together as well.
Maybe that's how Nathan Drake dies.
He becomes a clicker.
Everyone loves a zombie apocalypse. Been out apocalypse.
Didn't expect that, did you, Drake? Stupid haircut.
With your beautifully rendered hair.
And that beautiful bronze ring. What?
Whoa.
Easy.
Easy, Tiger.
No, I think it's... I agree with Chris. I think it does seem a little bit quick, suspicious even. And again, knowing very little about how difficult it is to change a PS3 game to a PS4 game, it does kind of seem like the sort of remastering that they do with like 80s albums where they just sort of turn it up. You know, like aren't they just kind of just running it through more powerful hardware and smoothing out the edges? Like, you know, in the same way that you would kind of create a PC game that scales to different hardware. I guess.
I think that, I mean, so from what sort of preview information I've seen, playing The Last of Us through on PlayStation 3, there was sort of a hike in quality between sort of the slightly pre-rendered scenes that came when you were watching a story cutscene compared to the actual gameplay, which probably had like a layer of fuzz over it that they do on the PS3 to smooth things over. So the PS4 is meant to run everything at that sort of pre-rendered sort of quality.
Yeah.
Which I think would be awesome for a game that's already of amazing quality anyway, to be honest.
And it must be great for a developer to see like the game that they properly envisioned, as in, you know, when they made The Last of Us and they were kind of sort of held back by some technological limitations that now they just don't have to worry about. Like they can make it as beautiful as they imagined it, which is nice. And it is great, like you say, that you can play it having missed it on the last console. And play like the definitive shiniest version. But it is a bit suspicious sometimes when kind of stuff like that comes out so quickly, and especially with like a load of advertising, a load of hype as like, you know, the definitive version, as in you've already played it but you need to play it again.
Yeah, I think it is a bit of a cash grab, and I think that this whole generation, sort of the advent of this generation last year when it was all sort of kicking off, was the biggest incentive for developers in terms of planning these cash grabs. You know, these are the sort of twilight era games of PlayStation 3, Xbox 360, and yet they're some of the first sort of first wave games coming out on the new consoles. There was a lot of talk when PlayStation 2 was finishing up about God of War 2, because that had just come out right at the end of the PS2's life cycle. And it was being hailed as, you know, an amazing technological achievement, and people were like, yes, I want to see this on the PlayStation 3. And then years later, you know, they started doing the HD remasters on the PS3 of the PS2 games, and I think that's where it all really started, was people seeing the market for it there right at the end.
Yeah, but it's kind of like what we were saying at the beginning. Like if you create a console generation that isn't backwardsly compatible, then you create this sort of artificial wall where you have to remake games for people of your new generation to play them.
Yeah, you don't give them the option to play the old ones, do you?
Yeah, exactly, because they don't have the option to do it. You know, like when if I owned one of the first generations of PS3s, then I would have the option to play my PS2 version of God of War on it. But with the new generation, I don't. It's just not there. You know, I could, of course, say I'm going to shell out the slightly inflated price and buy God of War 2 HD PS3 version. Or I could say I'm going to go to a second-hand video game shop and pick up God of War 2 on the PlayStation 2 for, like $5 and play it that way. And I think it's a shame that option's been taken away because I think it cuts games off from people. Not everyone can afford brand new HD remakes, and they just kind of made it so it's the only way you can play certain games.
And there's such a wealth of quality content from previous consoles that it seems a shame to fence that off.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I don't think they're doing themselves very, very many favors as well. I think the PS2 was right going, you can still play all your old PlayStation games on it. It made it a much more sensible purchase, knowing that your library wasn't suddenly defunct. I'm in the process of moving house, and I am in the process of basically throwing out my old PlayStation 2 games. And
a sad day.
It is, but it's because I don't own a PlayStation 2 anymore, and
is that why
doesn't
on the
play
wall?
them.
Is that why I recently came into possession of a copy of Kingdom Hearts 2?
That's the one.
The last time I saw you.
Yeah, exactly. It's like,
oh, here, this is yours.
It's a sad day, but it's like I can't play these anymore.
Well, I can because I've got a PS2.
You can, and that's why I gave it back to you, because I thought there's somebody here who will be happy with this.
Yes.
So, people in charities and
because I'm happy with the standard Kingdom Hearts 2. I don't need the HD remix.
Of course.
2.5 or whatever it is.
And I guess there's the other kind of remake, which in many ways I think is possibly worse, where say, for example, did you hear about the remake of Syndicate? Did you see that one when it came out? So, like, the original Syndicate was kind of a classic, like 90s tactical shooter in the vein of XCOM. And then they decided to, I think it was EA that remade it. And they basically just kind of got hold of the original Syndicate license and decided to make the most bland, uninspired third-person shooter in allegedly the same universe, but it kind of wasn't. It was just a universe with hackers, probably with Zeds, and that
so cool. They need a Z.
Yeah, and people that kind of wore too many sort of face masks, and it was, we were all fighting a corporation for some reason, and you could use hacking powers a bit.
But did it have all those key ingredients that the figures say sell games?
Yeah. It was very homogenized. Like it was, it
was that formula that game developers seem to need to follow nowadays in order to make their products profitable.
You had a white male, brown-haired hero fighting wave after wave of goons with a gun, and so in a vaguely uninspired futuristic city. But it tried to sell itself on the name of it being Syndicate.
Yeah, they bought the license, and that's what they're going to use to sell it. Yeah,
and it's the absolute antithesis to XCOM, and it's kind of an example because XCOM took what was brilliant about the old ones and brought it into the modern era.
See, I feel that way about the new Tomb Raider.
Yeah.
You feel that Tomb Raider is the antithesis of the series originally?
Well, it was a great game. It just was not a great Tomb Raider.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed it personally, but I don't necessarily think that it was a bad Tomb Raider. It was just different from what we're used to.
Well, that's the thing for me. I mean, I've played. There isn't a Tomb Raider title that I haven't played.
When you say it's not like a traditional Tomb Raider, what Tomb Raider you're referring to? Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3, which are like actually decent, or any of the shit that followed after that?
Well, you say shit, but Angel of Darkness was great. The one where the one where she had the doppelganger as well. I picked that up off PSN. It was on there for free, and it was that again. It was a great game that just held all the sort of values and the feel of the original Tomb Raiders that the new one. Although it was a great game, I'm not saying it wasn't a good game at all. I'm just saying it could have been, Uncharted 4.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, yeah, there was.
It had more of a feel of Uncharted than it did Tomb Raider.
Yeah, when they're reinventing themselves, they're going to imitate the best, aren't they?
Yeah.
Naughty Dog have set the new standard for that kind of adventure game.
But they've got this huge franchise that they've built off the same ingredients. Why change the ingredients if you're making a really nice pie?
The original Tomb Raider would have probably been inspiration as well for Naughty Dog with regards to the Uncharted series. But on the flip side, when was the last time that is it still Crystal Dynamics that actually make the games? I know obviously Square Enix hold the license, but
didn't it go from them after? I can't think who took it on.
I shall find out for you boys as we speak. Carry on.
Thanks, Vance.
Tap away.
Statistician.
But that the original series that inspired these sort of new action games ceased to exist after, in my opinion, the PlayStation 2 era sort of kicked off. And that was disappointing for me because I was in love with Tomb Raider 1, 2, and 3. Which was it? Was it Revelations after that? I didn't really like that too much, but
was that the one? That was the one with the multiple stories, wasn't it?
There's Feral Interactive, if that is a name that.
Is who? Sorry.
Feral Interactive.
Doesn't mean anything to me.
No.
Oh, well.
Those guys. I think it got passed around a lot after like the first 4 or 5 games. I think they then kind of jumped from developer to developer quite a lot.
Yeah, it was kind of hot potato with developers and
until Squeenix kind of ran with it.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that they've managed to sort of bring it back though. It sort of shows the strength of the brand, and the game had some pretty decent sales. I don't think it quite met the lofty expectations that Square Enix had set for it.
Well, when does anything? When does any expectation that Square Enix set? When does anything of theirs reach the expectations?
I know the insane expectations that Square Enix set it.
Yeah, they normally set sales targets of more people than there actually are on the Earth.
Yeah.
We're gonna ship 12 billion copies of this next title.
Absolutely. And they are the greatest offender, I guess, of the perpetual sequel remake in their increasingly ironically titled Final Fantasy.
Yeah,
I was just going to say, what shall we move on to remakes that we want to see?
Go on.
And I think you can guess what I'm about to say from that.
You were not about to say Final Fantasy VII.
That's the one that I want to see.
God.
Everyone wants to see that. People have been.
That game has been teased since the announcement of the PlayStation 3.
I remember on the PlayStation 3 launch.
That will never ever come out.
On the PlayStation 3 launch, they did a tech demo that showed it was allegedly supposed to show the power of the PS3, where they did this video, the video intro from FF7. In the sort of style of the movie Advent Children. And from then on everyone took it as like, they're doing it, they're going to remake it.
No, they just did that bit.
And it was just that bit. But apparently the remake of that is going to be the sort of swan song of the franchise. When it comes to the point where Final Fantasy is dying, which I think is now.
I think yes, I agree with that.
When it comes to that point, apparently then they're gonna bring it out as the sort of last hurrah for Final Fantasy.
That would be pretty cool, actually. I think it's because they've redone 1 through 6.
Yes, they
pretty
did.
effectively. But I guess that probably wouldn't require as much resource as redoing like a fully 3D game, like a rebuilding an entire
And
3D
plus
world.
the amount of care that you'd have to take with FF7.
God, yeah, if they got it wrong, Jesus.
Oh God, I'd
Earthling
I'd be
Proud.
banging on the doors. Damn you!
Well, they got it wrong. They got it wrong when they did the tech demo for the PlayStation 3, and then
Freaking
they did-
idea in people's heads.
they didn't have the balls for the 10 years that the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 were out to say, yeah, so that actually isn't going to happen. They just kept stringing people along for so long.
And I think they've quite explicitly said on a number of occasions that it isn't going to happen. But the internet rumour mill, as Chris has just amply proven,
It just keeps on churning out the rumours.
I mean, the fact that they didn't even manage to finish Final Fantasy 13 Versus alongside Final Fantasy 13 just sums up any chance that Final Fantasy 7 Remake may ever have.
Oh,
But
the series is a mess now.
I'm sorry,
13,
Chris,
13
but it's
2
just
and
not gonna
13 3 were just they seem so lazy to me. They looked fine, but the plots were boring and stale, and I mean, it's a fall from grace, I think, for the Final Fantasy series for me, because I was so deeply in love with everything up to 10.
Yeah. 10 was great. I think 10 was the last good one.
Yeah, I mean, I enjoyed 10 too. That was fun. Well, it wasn't quite as good as the other titles, but I mean, 11's where it started to be. I'm sorry, not 11, 12. Sorry, because 11 was the first online one that's still running today. Actually, I think 12 just got lazy then.
12 was bizarre. Like it just in terms of storytelling, it was kind of broken. Like
it was ridiculous. You look at the hero in that. In 7, you've got Cloud, who's a mercenary. He's trained in the sword arts. In 8, you've got Squall, who's a mercenary
trained in the sword arts.
Their moves reflected their sword skills. 9, Zidane was a thief. His abilities reflected his thieving. 10, Tidus was a blitzball player. He used blitzball moves in the game. In 12, Vaughn is some street rat urchin who, in the third fight that you play, is leaping up in the air and casting magical fireballs out of his fist.
Sweet.
And
Inevitability.
And
how is he still a street rat?
It just doesn't add up. And then you go through all these sort of nods to Star Wars and other sort of pop culture fantasy worlds all the way through the thing, and it just feels lazy, slack, and boring.
Yeah. He was me about to say that every Final Fantasy is just a remake of the last game.
Oh, don't you dare! We're going to need an entire new podcast to go into that one.
Exactly.
So, are there any other remakes that we know of coming out apart from The Last of Us and Kingdom Hearts 2.5 HD remakes? Is there anything else coming out that we know of? Because I can't really. Well, I suppose they just reinvigorated Wolfenstein with the new order.
Yeah, they have.
Although that
a sequel.
Yeah, it was a sequel slash. Well, I don't know if it was technically a reboot, but it takes place like in the future timeline if the events of Wolfenstein had carried on into the future. But it's been received pretty good actually. So maybe there is hope for games that are coming back from the dead or from a long exile.
They have just re-released. There's a company that's done Baldur's Gate 2 Ultimate Edition. You heard about this one? You ever played Baldur's Gate when you were a kid?
I did.
Played Baldur's Gate 2.
Yeah, so they've just released. It's a company called Beamdog, and they've created an Ultimate HD Edition with like new characters in it and new quests, where you can play like the bestest role-playing game that was ever made in lovely HD.
And it certainly was.
And they again, it's kind of the sort of thing we were talking about. It is kind of creating a HD copy for HD's sake. The thing about Baldur's Gate 2 is it is very much freely available on PC. Like, you can go pick it up on Good Old Games for like 10 quid.
I'm sure you can get it on mobile now as well.
Yeah. Yes. Oh, yeah. That was the version. I think.
Right.
The Beamdog made an iPad version of Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 as part of their HD remakes. Apparently, they're really hard to control.
Well, they're bound to be. I mean,
yeah.
I can't even imagine.
Like, just brutally almost impossible. But it's nice that they tried.
Oh yeah.
And they are, and that's, I guess, the other kind of good thing about companies remaking old franchises, because this was kind of clearly a work of love. Like, they loved and respected it so much that they wanted to add to it and release what they considered to be the Ultimate Edition at a fairly reasonable price. Even though you can buy the original and buy loads of mods to make it look kind of like the Beamdog one. But they created some more content for it. And they did it to kind of practice making Baldur's Gate 3, apparently. Like, they're essentially trying to build up a tool set so that they would be able to actually make Baldur's Gate 3 and get enough of the kind of original people on board. Which is cool.
Very cool.
That is cool, yeah.
Yeah.
So, let's summarise here, because we're running out of time.
Yeah.
Video game reboots. Jake, good thing, bad thing?
Good thing, bad thing. I think there is a lot of good that can come out of them, but I think they can be used to, just kind of exploit people and wring more money out of them. So it's important to use your head and go with stuff you love.
Ben?
I've got to sort of echo what Jake's saying. There's positive and negatives to remakes. I wouldn't recommend people double dipping on a game that they've played.
Never
double dip.
Or triple dipping in some instances. But yeah, I mean, The Last of Us is coming out, and I'm going to buy it on PS4. GTA 5 is coming out on PS4. I'm going to buy that. Maybe I'm a hypocrite, but yeah, just make an informed decision at the end of the day.
Mance, have you got anything to add?
What actually just happened then in your pen?
Just so difficult to. I can't talk. I'll buy any game 4 times over if it's gonna look better. So
More money than sense.
Voided from this.
Yes.
It's so difficult to come up with an opinion when I'm playing Euro Truck Simulator.
Damn it!
And with Mance's lack of eloquence, we'll wrap it up there. I've been Chris.
I've been Jake.
I've been Ben.
I've been the man.
Catch you next time.
Cheers.